Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. This video is going to be a little bit different than what I normally do. Usually I'm getting angry and screaming about the entire concept of what PoE 2 has become, but I kind of want to give you my perspective on the campaign in 0.2, mostly because, as you can see right here, I'm fully res capped. I'm playing my Spearfield Bleed Rake Huntress, which honestly has been doing very well, and honestly it's been really great to play. The thing is though, if you want the PoE DB, it's going to be in the description down below for the build and the build guide as well, so you can have that there. The thing is, the campaign has been, as everybody likes to say, a slog, and I really want to give my feedback as to why the campaign has felt so bad and why Endgame feels like a completely different game from what I played the last 20 hours. Yeah, it took me a week and a half to beat the campaign. I'm slower than most, but the thing is, for me, I don't use a build guide. I don't really go anywhere else with that. I like to experiment while I'm playing the game, and I like to take my time. So it was a little bit different for me as well. And the first thing that I want to cover is gold. I know you can't even see it right here, but let me move myself real quick. There it is. So gold has been a huge issue for me the entire campaign, and really mostly because I was speccing and respecking throughout the entire playstyle. Trying to figure out what would be a good build for me and what I wanted to do was really difficult while trying to experiment with all the skills that I had available. The problem was, as I was playing the campaign normally, respecking and specking again, trying different skills, trying different nodes, seeing what different notables there were available for me to use, where to go on my tree without, let's say, using something like Path of Building. If I was a new player, I wanted to see it from that kind of perspective, would really put a massive damper on things, mostly because I would be at a point where I wouldn't have enough gold for respecs while playing the game, yet at the same time also not having enough gold to buy gear that I needed was either random or that I needed an upgrade for, anything else along that nature. So it got to a point where I was constantly going around and trying to farm gold rather than actually playing the campaign and just progressing like normal. And that really was a major issue for me. I really feel like the cost to respec during the campaign should at least be half the cost of what it is right now, especially in the earlier acts, like say 1, 2, and 3. Once you get into cruel difficulty, you kind of like figured out where you're gonna kind of go and figure out what you're gonna want to do. So it made things easier after that. You can plan yourself out a lot quicker. But the thing is though, in those first 3 acts, it is a horrendous just pain in the ass to go through and try to figure out what you want to do, where your gold's going to go, and how much gold you're even getting in as a player. Some other options would be like, oh, just increase the amount of gold you get. But I think overall in general, just reducing the amount of gold cost it takes for respecs and also reducing the amount of gold required in order to get gear from actual vendors or even from gambling would be a good thing as well, because resources are incredibly limited in the very early stages of the game. And I notice that happens as well throughout other things, because it's not just gold that's a problem, but also, let me switch myself again. There we go. Gear is a major problem in the early acts as well. I didn't start feeling like I had a good amount of power or player progression until I in fact got into mapping, not cruel sections, not anything else. Once I got into maps and was able to actually get enough exalts to what I needed to do, then it really made a lot more sense. The amount of regals I've had the entire campaign was 5. I've had 5 regals either made via sharding or just dropped altogether, and I've had 5 total exalts in the campaign. The only reason I have 67 exalts right now is because I'm taking tablets and rolling them and then selling them on the trade site. But the amount of currency that you need in order to quote unquote craft in this game is so incredibly limited all the way up until you get to the actual end game progression that it really hinders everything altogether. People saying that there's not enough loot in the game, the loot drops aren't the problem. The problem is the currency required that you need in order to create the loot that you need to upgrade for your character directly. When you played PoE 1, what you were looking for were the ability to find the right amount of sockets and the right amount of links, even for white pieces of gear on the floor, which made every piece of gear on the floor available to you in the early game viable. It really was just a better way of getting more gear in PoE 1 early on than it is in PoE 2. It's so starved for currency that it really is a huge factor of trying to get more rares and better blues overall. Regal shards should be 5 to 1, not 10 to 1 in terms of actually getting a regal orb. I feel like that's a massive issue, trying to go ahead and give the player enough regal orbs to then get those rares to feel more powerful in the actual campaign. You should also be able to just re-roll the ability to have different affixes on your blue pieces of gear. So that way when you regal orb them, you have a good piece of gear that you can set up correctly and you can actually craft them. The idea is, for me personally, that regal orbs should be a 5 to 1 for shards, at least. And that at the same time, whenever you fight a yellow enemy or a rare enemy, you should in fact always get a rare drop. That way you'll have the ability to shard that gear, even if it's not part of the kind of gear that you need. So you constantly have gear coming down on top of you, haha, no pause. But at the same time, even if you don't need it, you can still say, oh, no worries, I can get a shard from it. To make things even easier though, if you have a piece of gear that is blue, I think a better thing for using a regal orb is, instead of just getting one affix, whether it's prefix or suffix, you should get 2. It should be 2. If I already have 1 prefix and 1 suffix, or 2 prefixes or 2 suffixes from using an orb of transmutation and augmentation, if I regal orb it, I should get 2, whether it's 1 open prefix or 1 open suffix or both of either one. That way, using a regal orb has more value to me, and I would use it on a piece of item that I can say, hey, hold on, I can really go forward with this and get some better affixes on it. And then you can reroll it later with a chaos orb later on if you'd like to. Exalt orbs also just don't drop enough. Even in the end game, I've only gotten like 6 or 7 actually dropping in maps. The rest of the time I've had to go ahead and use the currency trader. And that really is a pretty much horrible thing to do, because I don't have any good currency in the campaign to then actually trade for exalted orbs, which I need to then go ahead and juice up the actual gear that I really want to wear throughout the campaign and make myself stronger to make things easier. I then have to go ahead and wait to get to maps to get proper currency to drop and then trade that for exalted orbs, because even if I wanted to get runes, it doesn't make any sense, because let's say if I get some beginning runes earlier on, they're worth nothing. I have to have 80 of these runes to get them. It really is just inflated overall. And speaking of runes directly, they don't drop enough to be a proper replacement for the crafting bench. I'm sorry, John and Mark. They really just don't. In the actual, 60 hours of playing for this league so far, here are the total amount of runes that I've had next to what I've actually put into my gear. This is it. This is all of it right here. I should have way more than this in the campaign if the entire premise is that we're going to be having runes to replace the crafting bench. And I understand the concept, because you don't have new players going back to their hideout to then go to the crafting bench to then craft there. You can just do runes instead. That's a great idea for a new player. The difference is, though, if you're not giving the actual player enough runes to experiment with and actually put into their gear during the campaign, or enough actual artificer's orbs to put into their sockets for their gear to make those sockets, then it's completely wasted, and you're better off giving the player a crafting bench in each specific town during the campaign rather than making a hideout. You made the excuse, like I said, of having it be in the hideout. Just put the crafting bench next to the salvage bench, or even better yet, remove the salvage bench altogether. I don't know why this is even here. Now look, hear me out. If I have a rare item that either has a socket or is just specifically set up to be a rare item or is superior, I should be able to go ahead and disenchant that item and get everything. I should be able to get the regal shard that goes along with it. I should be able to get the actual shard for the artificer's orb and any upgraded armor scraps or weapon scraps that are part of that piece of gear, not just the actual shard of it being a rare item. This would give players the ability to say, hey, I don't have to pick and choose what I really need next for my currency. And when we want to talk about the campaign difficulty towards the actual endgame difficulty, let's talk about the skills, can we? Why on earth is my base attack, my default attack, doing sheet damage more than everything else that I have as an ability of a combo that you want me to do? Can you guys explain that to me? Am I taking crazy pills here? Why would I ever if I was someone who was numbers driven, why would I ever do any sort of these combinations of skills to do damage when literally my default attacks are doing 2 to 3 times more sheet DPS than they ever would? I would simply just go ahead and put everything in the spear stab and spear throw and all of my actual just supports into there, where I get free skill slots on top of that just by leveling up, and I don't have to use any jeweler's orbs to go ahead and get more skill slots, and just put everything in there. You guys want us to do combos, you guys want us to figure things out, you want us to do meaningful combat, yet you're making it totally meaningless when the actual default attacks are this powerful. And then at the same time, you're giving us all of these skills and abilities. Sure, okay, you can go ahead and it's 150% of your weapon damage or your actual attack. I get it. But any regular player will say, why would I ever waste my time doing these combinations of skills when the sheet DPS says this? Like that makes no sense whatsoever to me. It really boggles our mind that the default attack is this intense. And let's go into the whole meaningful combat thing. Because the problem is, you guys talked about, hey, we're going to slow down monster speed. We're going to make things slower. We're going to look at specific monsters and how they move and give them walking rather than running and things like that. And that's great and all. But the problem is, once we hit Act 1 Cruel, all of that goes out the window. Here's some footage I took from just a regular Tier 2 map today. Does this look like meaningful combat to you? This looks like I'm literally just spamming Spearfield and letting my Herald of Blood pop everything with hemo crystals. There's no meaningful combat here. Instead of you guys actually wanted to go through and say, hey, we're going to make different kinds of combat. We're going to slow things down. We're going to make it meaningful in what we want to do. This is literally just PoE 1 straight off the rip. Every monster rushing you, every monster crowding you, tons of monsters on the screen, and they have a massive amount of HP directly. And this is a Tier 2 map. This isn't like Tier 15, Tier 16. This is a Tier 2 or Tier 3 map. How this makes any sense whatsoever in terms of what you guys want to do for meaningful combat really is just totally out of sync. What you say and what's in the game does not match. And when you guys get upset that people are breaking the game with things like Lightning Spear or with things like Herald of Blood or Herald of Lightning and Herald of Ice and combining those things to clear the screen, and you want to do something different, you're literally just giving us the complete opposite. We have 2 different games. We have a game that is PoE 2 in the campaign, the first 3 acts, and then we have PoE 1 in Act 1 Cruel all the way to Endgame. So you completely have to make a total shift in what's going on. And enemy monster life is far too high. I'm glad you guys fixed the speed early on in the campaign, but the problem is monster HP is far too massive. If you're going to have enemies swarm a player, then a default attack or a light attack should knock out all those smaller enemies directly. It shouldn't take all this time to go through and kill white mobs that I'm working through with honestly pretty good gear for a Tier 3 mapper. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. It's almost like you guys are saying one thing and then in reality we're doing a completely different thing as well. And then when we get to bossing, I mean, look at this. I don't know if it's my build, I don't know if it's anything else, but it probably isn't. But I think a lot of other people are just basically just 2 or 3 shotting bosses within 20 to 15 seconds. And I'm probably on the low end on the DPS side from the way things are looking. The concerns that people are having about this game and the reason why people are upset is because the difficulty curve is far too high in the beginning. You're not giving enough people enough currency to create the gear they need to get past the difficulty curve. And then when we get to the end game or the cruel section, you completely abandon all the actual mechanics and styles that you wanted to have for the beginning of the game at end game. So we're basically just playing PoE 1 all over again without all the benefits of actually playing PoE 1. It really is just a concerning thing to me. And I feel like you guys haven't grasped the concept of it. If honestly you had the same amount of drop rates and the same amount of currency drops in the campaign as we do at endgame, the campaign would feel a lot better. And then if the actual endgame was juiced to the point where you would actually have more currency dropping for players or more gear dropping for players, you would have a much better experience overall. But the thing is, that game already exists. It's called Path of Exile 1. That already happened. So if you guys want to make that change, you have to commit to that change. You can't sit there and swarm a player with hundreds of monsters, ask them to do combinations of skills, and then make the basic default attack skills the most powerful skills to use. I feel like you guys have to really take a look at the kind of combat you want to do, because what you're asking players to do and what you're showing players to do in game are two vastly different things. And the campaign needs a massive adjustment in terms of enemy life, difficulty for the player, damage overall for skills and abilities, and even at the same time, more currency drops for possible crafting, or the ability to have a crafting bench rather than just a salvaging bench altogether. I don't think that is too far-fetched to ask for, because then that way people would actually have fun playing the video game. But that's just my take. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. If you like this video, thank you. And if you want to see more, subscribe. I'll see you guys in Last Epoch later today. Thanks for watching.